Hello, and welcome to the Venue Coach Blueprint for Owners. I'm Kyle Labar. This podcast is all about helping you fill your wedding venue with more bookings, earn more from each one, and keep your customers happy for a long time. We'll also talk about some tough times and big lessons that I've learned along the way. Let's dive in together and make your venue the best spot for weddings. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Venue Coach, and I have a special episode today because I have asked Kelly Lee, one of my partners at the Black Oak and also the general manager, to talk with us today to go over how she is able to convert at such a high level while we are still increasing prices incrementally as we go through this awesome journey. And so I've asked her to just come on and share some of, some helpful tips and tricks and things that she's picked up along the way to just really help our venue get to from, I think we were sitting around like a 33% conversion, and now like last month she closed 67% of the tours that showed up, and that's 65 to 75%. It's about her range. And so she's definitely stepped up the game and taken it up a notch. So this is actually really exciting to share with you guys because I want to just provide as much value as possible. So without any further ado, Kelly, let's get into it. Why don't you start from more on that beginning when we were sitting around 33% and just share a little bit about that and then the process to get to the higher conversion and like what you do on the tours that's made a difference.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Kyle. I'm super excited to be on your podcast. So when we first started, literally I had no idea what I was doing. I do not have a sales background. I do not know anything about sales. I claim myself as not a people person. So this was a huge role for me to step into and try to navigate. And obviously it's my business as well. So we really wanted to figure it out and make it work, because somebody has to pay the bills,
Right. Well, especially, as venue owners and the podcast is for venue owners. It's different because we know what it's like to have the multi-$1,000 mortgage bill due every month. And so that's definitely a heavy weight on the shoulders. So when we started out, just for context, everybody, Kelly and I were tag teaming a lot of the tours, and she's physically closer to our venue, and so she was handling more of the bulk of the work at the beginning. But we were both doing tours, and we're both on calls every day, just talking back and forth on what about this and how about that. And my background is in sales, and so I've done a lot of over the phone sales and some in-person sales, and so it was really a learning experience for both of us.
Right. Yeah, it totally was. And I definitely received so much value from you and your background and your experience, which was super valuable, obviously. But a lot of it came with us and getting into a new position and a new job. This is my job, to figure out how to navigate, what kind of tactics that we could use, what would work on couples, what wouldn't. And ultimately we really tested and so much trial and error.
Like what?
For sure. We would go backwards in our tours. Like we would say, okay, well, and maybe you didn't do this, Kyle, but I did. I would say, okay, I'm going to start with the outside ceremony areas first, and then I'll circle back inside. So I tried that for a while, and that didn't work. I didn't like it. It made me feel awkward. And so, like, just even getting the flow down and what makes you comfortable to walk through the venue and to show each thing. But I always started with, tell me about your plans.
Okay. Why is that?
What do you envision for your wedding? How many people do you have? What time of year are you wanting? Do you have a specific date in mind? Tell me about your engagement. How long have y'all been engaged? Things like that, so that I knew how to direct conversation throughout the tour to make it easier for myself at the end to bring those things back in to try to sell them.
Okay. Yeah, so having the ammunition at the beginning to tie it back to them.
Yeah. Well, and really those types of things, those kind of questions that you're like, oh, just the get to know you kind of questions. Oh, show me your Pinterest board. Oh, I'd love to see what colors you're doing. Mm-hmm. That could really help if you don't close them that day. It kind of helps you with your follow-ups to say, hey, I saw this beautiful setup. I just had one recently. She's getting married in December, and I just got on Pinterest super quick. I knew what the vibe was that she was wanting. She wanted it super green and evergreens and things like that. She wants to incorporate Christmas trees and that kind of thing. So I went on Pinterest and I found a couple little cute posts that I felt like she would like, and I sent them, and I said, hey, I came across this, and it looks like your vibe, such a cute idea. And she was like, oh my gosh, I love it. And so I think that it just creates that kind of camaraderie, like, hey, we're here to help you. We're here to help create your vision, to make it a reality for you. So that makes it a lot easier. And she ended up booking. So. Oh,
very nice.
This is actually one that I'm testing right now. So she was my one and only to report, but it did work. So I'm going to keep it going.
Okay. Well, it doesn't say the data doesn't say stop. And we actually had that conversation when we were testing, doing the gift boxes. And so, we had the conversation of beginning or end of the tour, and the data initially didn't say stop, but we needed a good data set, and so it was really cool to see that. And so yeah, we love testing things out. What else are you testing out right now?
We're actually testing out water bottles. So we provide a water bottle to the couple, and anyone that comes, we'll give them a water bottle at the beginning of the tour. So yeah, I've had one tour so far with that one. Our other venue has done a few more, but it seems to be pretty positive on that response. I definitely like giving the water bottle at the beginning more than I ever liked giving the gift box at the beginning. That one made me feel a little awkward.
Right, I know you felt awkward about it, and I made you do it anyways.
Well, and the thing is, like, I'm such a gift person, as you know, and so there has to be intent behind it.
Right.
And so for me to give a gift to a complete stranger, like, felt really not great. And it's not that I made it feel awkward to them, like, hey, here's a gift for you. We're so glad that you came, whatever.
Right.
But it felt way more natural at the end. Like, thank you so much for spending your time with me and for coming and touring. And as a thank you, we'd like to give you this gift.
Yeah. Well, and I always thought that at the end, well, I guess you could see it at the beginning or the end. I always thought that it was like at the end, it's a, oh, and here's something as a bribe to, this is not a bribe, like The Office or the other guys. This is not a bribe. This is not a bribe. But, it is, but it's not. We genuinely mean it when we're giving them the gift, that it's for their, engagement, that sort of thing. So,
well, and funny enough, I had several, and it seemed to be more on the groom side. They would say, oh, this is tricky. Like, they would catch on to the idea that maybe it was a little bribey, I guess. But, and I would combat it and say, you know what, like, we know what we're doing, but again, like, we're just grateful for your time. And so
exactly.
If you end up booking, wonderful. If you don't, then, we
enjoy your gift.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so they come in, you are now giving them a bottle of water, you're building some rapport with them, and then you take them through the venue. As you're going, are there any things that you're saying or that you're trying to get the information from them that's going to clue you into likelihood of booking?
Typically, if it's usually the bride, she's the one kind of leading, and I get a few grooms that have a little bit stronger opinion sometimes, but typically it's the bride. And if she just, like, there's always a tell that they're like, oh my gosh, I love it. I love it so much more than the other one, or they're constantly comparing it to other venues that they've looked at.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually a really strong indicator. And so if I hear her doing that, I'll say, oh, what didn't you like about the other one? Or,
so reinforcing that the other one is second rate.
Right. Like, oh, what didn't you like? Or, oh, where is that at? Or, you know, just kind of probing. And that helps me see what other venues that they were looking at, the style of them. Yeah. I don't know all the venues that, that we have around us. There's so many, but I like to look them up and see, like, you know, where we stack up. Is it a pricing issue? Is it whatever? So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I want to just take a tangent on that for a second. So in these other venues, I mean, obviously with Dallas, there's some 700 venues around. I've on some of the calls I've had with prospective clients for the coaching and for the ads and everything, I've actually heard a lot lately that people are seeing more competition entering their marketplaces. And but when I look at the data for the different areas, the ratios stay about the same. It's usually between 55 to 65 weddings per venue. So with that in mind, have you seen an uptick in competition in the area? And what's your take on competition?
So I have actually heard from two different venues or two different tours of two completely separate venues popping up just recently. But then the feedback that I got is, oh, it was too small. I just booked a couple and they were like, well, we're going to go and we love this venue, probably booking, but we already committed to going to this open house and for my mom, whatever. So then when they did come back to book, I said, oh, how was it? You know? Yeah. And they're like, it was just so small and they didn't have this or they didn't have that. And one big thing for us is our chapel that we just completed. So. Right.
Yeah, that's been huge.
It's a big seller for us. But I tried to recognize that there's so much room in the market for everyone to succeed. And I have my own goals. We have our goals within our own venue, and it's good to know what your competition is doing as far as pricing and what the offerings are. But I don't really feel like I'm in competition with them. I feel like I'm in competition with myself.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the approach that I've hoped that we would take, is that, you know, initially when we set out is, everybody else in the area is pricing around this and they're doing this. But then the other thing is not everybody's successful, right? And so if we just do what everybody else is doing, then we'll just be like everybody else. But what we want is to be a cut above the rest, and we want to make sure that we're not doing what everybody else is doing.
Correct.
And so you're right. I mean, the only people we should be competing with is ourselves. And I've seen and heard of things that venues do that are less than stellar. And so it's like, oh, well, that's something we don't do. And so that's good to know. But yeah, I'm always, how do we improve us? Not what are they doing so we can be better. Like I could care less. Could not care less, actually. Okay, so you're not too worried about competition, but you use it as fuel to kind of stoke the flames to get people more interested in us. So
I mean, if they're mentioning other venues, then I'm like, tell me about them. Yeah. Tell me what you were drawn to, like because of what they were offering or whatever it may be. Yeah. And then I make it a fun little conversation, like, oh, but do they have a chapel?
Right. Trump card.
I know no one around us has one.
Right.
So, and I will say this, sometimes they will have one. Sometimes somebody in Dallas will say, oh yeah, they've got a chapel. Mm-hmm. But I've seen chapels popping up in the Dallas area, and I'm a little sad. I'm a little sad that they're taking such a cheap approach to getting it done, right? Like, I understand the chapel just becomes a building for the couples to get married in and a place to get out of the heat and the weather and whatever it may be. But there's one prominent venue in Dallas that I expected more out of, and I'm not going to mention their name, but they threw up a metal frame, easy peasy little quote unquote chapel, and I'm like,
like, really? You could have done better.
Yeah, could have done better. Like, give the couples better. Like, it's their entire basis of their marriage and all the pictures and all the things, and that's one thing that we've always kept in mind at the Black Oak and the Villa. We want to create a beautiful space so that is lasting and timeless, and they feel good about their choice. Mm-hmm. And they can go anywhere they want on the property, and it will be beautiful.
Right. Well, and I think that there, like what you said with that steel frame chapel, it's like venues and vendors seem to forget why they're in business and who's keeping them in business. Mm-hmm. It's kind of sad because I can almost understand it in the sense that, if you're a popular venue and you're doing 70, 80, 100 plus events a year, it gets repetitive. And so you can lose sight of the individual day. And that's where we try to make a difference as well is, we do a ton of weddings, but we don't forget that each one is the biggest moment of the couple's life. Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yes.
So how do you like convey that to the couples when they're on the tour and so that they know that we're all about them?
Well, we have a saying that we are the fairy godmothers, right? Mm-hmm. We want to create that very special day where they feel so important and so beautiful and so well supported. Because that's another big thing. Like, I've not just couples, because we don't work with a lot of couples who don't book with us, obviously. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it comes from vendors, and they're like, I have never seen a more involved manager at a venue. And it's so shocking to me because how else would you be? And they say, oh, well, they will sit in the office, or sometimes they're not even around, like we never see them, things like that. And I am a doer, and so it's really hard for me to not be involved. I do offer day of coordinating, and if I don't get hired for that position, I still find myself very much involved in the day, whether I'm helping the photographer gather people or helping the bride carry her dress to the chapel or whatever it may be. Like, I'm always around and available to help to make sure everything goes right. I tell people all the time that if something bad happens at the venue, whether it be the venue or another vendor, let's say catering or whoever, if something goes wrong with another vendor, it always is the venue's fault. Right. They'll say, oh, I had the crappiest food at the Black Oak, even though we didn't cater it. Right. And so we always want to maintain the standards that we expect in every vendor. And so we're always happy to jump in and correct an issue for the couple with another vendor. Mm-hmm. I'm going off on a complete tangent here, but we want to create that very easy day, stress-free. I tell all my couples day of, hey, you can't come in unless you are stress-free. This is a stress-free zone. You leave it all on me. And I mean it. I really do mean it. And they are usually so grateful for that. We've had terrible vendors out, and the couple is completely unaware, which is exactly the place that they should be.
Yeah, that's good. They shouldn't be aware of issues that are happening.
No, and another thing that I remind them is that they are the guest of honor. They are not the host.
Right.
And
so explain that a little more.
All of the stress, all of the control to somebody else. Typically, it's me, which I am a little bit of a control freak, so it works out great. And they have a great day. Like, we really do mean it. We want them to have an exceptional day.
Yeah. Okay. So on the tour, you're saying, oh, we're the fairy godparents. We're going to take care of you. We're going to handle all this stuff. And then, so we're on the tour. We walk through. You've said that. You've built some rapport. They've seen the chapel. They've seen everything. Now, how are you getting them to book? Because that's the whole point of the tour, right?
Yeah, of course. We want them to do this.
Yeah, how do we get them to book with us?
Stay tuned for part 2 of this episode.